Hello and welcome. I am recording this in a longer format than I normally would because I would love to share with you more in-depth information about love and relationships, specifically around experiencing heartbreak within an existing relationship. And I think sometimes when we think of heartbreak, we think that it's something that happens when a relationship comes to an end. But I would say heartbreak comes long before that. It's that moment you realize things are slowly declining and a decision has to be made. And that is probably one of the most painful points in any relationship. My name is Tabitha MacDonald, and I am an intuitive coach, and I help people move through pain to possibility as fast as possible. And that's all pain, the pain that we experience in our bodies and our hearts. And so, thank you for joining me today. Um, let's start by sharing a story. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my experience with heartbreak while I was still married. I remember when my husband and our relationship really started falling apart. And it was when I rem he started drinking again. Like, he was sober for 5 years. That's really when we built our life together. We had 2 kids. We finally had the house that we wanted. We had, challenges, but nothing that we couldn't work through. And then he went on a trip to Alaska, and when he came back, he was never the same, and I still don't really know what happened up in Alaska, and it doesn't really matter because, the man who returned was the person I was most afraid of, and his behavior started getting more erratic, and the more erratic his behavior became, the more codependent I became, and I started trying to control the situation. I was so afraid of losing my marriage that the more control I lost, the more control I tried to get, and that was my real codependency issues coming out. And I was somewhat familiar with codependency, but I really didn't understand it because it's how I saw the world. Like, I didn't know it because it was so integrated into how I operated. And so, in order to see something that's how you've always operated with, it's really challenging because it's your reality. It is like telling somebody that the color blue is really the color red. It's like you can't change that color for them that easily. They either have to experience a pain so big that they finally see the truth, or it's through education or watching and witnessing other people. And so when he came back and I knew something was off and I noticed my behavior was becoming way more anxious and very, very codependent. I forget the night where I realized he was drinking, um, but it finally snapped into place that he was secretly drinking, and it was awful because actually once I figured it out, the drinking came out into the open because there was no need to hide it anymore, and that's when things really got bad. And he would disappear, for days at a time, without letting me know where he was going. And, things got erratic. So we spent about 3 years going into AA, going out of AA. I would go to Al Anon and come out of Al Anon. Like, there was just this constant roller coaster in our marriage. And the worst part was the heartbreak I was experiencing during the marriage struggling because I wanted more than anything on the planet to make my marriage work no matter what. In fact, I even said that to him. I said, I am not going to get a divorce. Like, this is not an option for me. I grew up in a broken home. I had a lot of abuse in the home because of it. And I do not want that for my children, period. I do not want that. And because I was so closed-minded, I could not see the pain that my choices were causing the family as a whole. Um, and so what what I'm really getting at is that when we're in heartbreak, it doesn't necessarily mean it's because the relationship has ended. Some of the worst heartbreak I've ever experienced was that moment where I really felt the pain of my marriage falling apart and not knowing how to save it and feeling um disempowered, like the other person had all the power because I knew that what was destroying our marriage was his drinking, and that, you know, if he didn't quit drinking, there was no saving it. And so, because I knew that to be true, then the only option was for him to quit drinking. So instead of me really doing my inner work, all I focused on was trying to get him to quit drinking. And that included going to church, even though we'd never been to church before. It included like putting him into rehab centers, engaging my family in it. You name it. I did everything I could to get him sober. I tried shame, I tried support. There was one point where he was even arrested for drunk driving, and his dad called and said, "Oh, I'm gonna, bail him out." And I said, "Don't you dare. He needs to feel the pain of it so he can finally get sober." And this went on for 3 years, 3 years of broken promises, of sobriety, of relapses, and me focused on one thing only, and that was if he gets sober, our marriage will be fine again. And the truth is, that belief was probably what caused me the most pain because I did not do any work on myself. All I thought about was how to get him sober. And that, I think, is the curse of a codependent human being. And it really robbed me of my own joy in life. And it robbed me of the simple solution to really let go, to just let go and see him for who he was and for the illness that he was struggling with. It's almost like telling somebody who has diabetes not to struggle with diabetes. It's like they have diabetes. Granted, there's lifestyle choices, but somebody has to want to make those changes. You can't make them want to. And so, what I really learned looking back, and what I wish I would have known, and what I hope other people will gain from this conversation that we're going to have, is that the only person in the situation that you have any control or authority over is you. And when you're really in the throes of, oh my gosh, is my marriage falling apart? Is this the end? Like, what can I do? That's where we go within and start doing our own inner work. And that's where true transformation will happen. Sometimes the answer is yes, this marriage needs to be over, or relationship if you're dating someone. And sometimes it is that you needed to transform your own identity in order to have and create the relationship that you wanted from the one that you already have. And the only person who will ever know that answer is you. And it takes the journey of self-discovery and of changing your own behaviors and patterns, even though the other person may be having the behavior that's creating all of the pain. I mean, I remember the first Al-Anon meeting I went to, and I sat there angry. I was like, why should I be here? Why should I have to sit in this room? He's the one with the drinking problem. And I took away some really valuable information that night. And the adult children of alcoholics said that the parent they were most angry at was the one who was sober. And that really hit me hard because I was thinking, like, how is that possible? Like, I'm the one trying to save everybody. And if you can relate to that sentence, keep listening because this definitely is for you. Um, and it landed for me in a way where I thought I want to do the opposite of whatever those parents did so that I don't ever burden my children with that sentence. I never want them to be sitting in an Al-Anon room and say, it was my mom who created more pain for me than my drunk dad. And so I really started doing my own inner work. And I also knew that sitting in Al-Anon for the rest of my life wasn't what I wanted. I saw people who were in there 20 some odd years, and I love Al-Anon. It was a great starting point for me. But they were fully enmeshed in the identity of being a codependent or of being someone who struggled with an addict in their life. And I knew that I didn't want to have that identity become my future. Like I didn't want to have to be sitting in Al-Anon 20 years from now talking about the same things over and over again. So what's the solution? Like you're in a marriage or a relationship and you're not happy and you're struggling and the other person's behavior is causing you a lot of pain. What's the solution, right? Because that's what we really want to know. How do we come out of that? And I would say the first step is really defining what you want. We get so stuck in the problem that we don't take time to define what we actually want. All we know is that we want to be out of pain and we want this person's behavior to stop hurting us. And so what I want to offer you is that the first step is to define what you want. And for a lot of people, this is a challenge because we don't think about what we want. We think about what we were supposed to want, or we think about what we should want. We think about the repercussions of actually speaking the truth about what our heart truly desires. And so as you're listening to this, I want you to think about, what do you really want? And I'm going to guess it's unconditional love, because that is the basic human need and desire that drives most of our behavior. So I want you to think about what that would feel like and what that would be like to receive, and to actually have someone that you could give that to. So when I'm working with couples or I'm working with individuals, I do the same thing. When we think about what we want, we remove the other person and we put just a beam of light there. And the reason we do that is because as soon as we define the person who needs to be there, our definitions of what we want can only exist in the same structure of what they can provide. So we don't want to say, I'd like, a 5'10" brunette with curly hair and green eyes, because now we're defining the person that maybe we're dating or that we have our heart set on, instead of actually thinking about what we want. And if we define it that way, what will happen is your unconscious mind will only look for the qualities that you like in that specific person, instead of helping you really come up with a list of what you truly desire and that you value. And so let's take a moment to think about that. So like if we were to remove your ex or your current partner or your dream partner and just put like a beam of light there, we're just going to put like a beam of light that represents Mr. or Mrs. Perfect. And when you think about interacting with that person, how do you want to feel? And just take a moment and like really allow yourself to think about how you would like to feel, not how you think about now or how you feel now, but what would you like to feel? And once you have that written down or jotted down somewhere, I want you to come up with the top 5 feelings you would like to have in your relationship. And I'm going to start talking about some, and then you get to decide which of those resonate to be true for you. Unconditional love is where we get to show up and be seen for who we are, not who somebody expects us to be. Unconditional love means loving you in your ugly sobbing times as much as your joyful, expressive times. It means loving you in your failure and your success. It means loving you in your sadness and your joy. And it means loving you in your fear and in your loyalty. It means loving you in your pain and your happiness. It means loving you in your strength and your vulnerability. It means loving you in your peace and also in your ability to express your things you're not happy about, your conflict. It means loving you in your perfection and your imperfection. And it means loving you when you are the one who knows what everyone needs, and also when you express your own needs. It means all of those things. So think about what you really want. Authentic love. What else do you want? Do you want security, stability, commitment? Is that important to you? And be honest, don't think about this in terms of what you think you can get or what you've already had. Is having a committed partner important to you? Is, not commitment important to you? And that's okay, but we want to be honest about what's important to us. Is it monogamy? Now, think about other feelings that you would like to have in your relationship. Do you want playfulness and lightheartedness? Is that important to you? Now, you don't necessarily have to be a playful and lighthearted person. Sometimes we can call that in when we are actually lacking that value ourselves. But just think about what you really want and what you need. Maybe it's passion. Do you crave passion and sensuality? I think that's a big one that a lot of people choose to ignore. That's really important to understand. Like, do you want to have that passion with another human being around how you live life and how you interact intimately with each other? Is passion a big thing that's missing for you? Is that something important? Think about adventure. Are you looking for adventure and spontaneity? Is that one of your core values? And if adventure and spontaneity is not one of your core values, is it more, is your core value more about your, security, stability, and predictability? Think about how your relationship with money is. Are you looking for somebody who has a lot of ambition around money? Like, do you share the core values around financial abundance and wealth? Think about other things that are important to you. Are you affectionate? Do you want affection? Do you love having a lot of affection in your day, or do you really value your time and your time independence? Do you value humor and being funny and laughing? Think about physical values. Do you value exercise and being active? Do you value strength and in your health? Is health a big value for you? If it's a big value for you, is this important in the relationship that health is a priority and a value? And I'm not just talking about physical health, I mean mental health, emotional health. Think about what's important to you. And as you're doing this, I really want you to come up with your top 7 values. I can tell you mine. Mine is love, unconditional love. It's growth. I have a very grounded mindset in growth. And it would really be a struggle for me to date someone who did not have a growth mindset. Contribution is hugely important to me. What I contribute to the world matters to me, and I need to be with someone who also has contribution as a top part of their value structure. Passion and romance, that's a top value for me. I really value passion for living, passion for the relationship, passion for your convictions, like passion's a huge one for me. Integrity, being in alignment with what you say and what you do is incredibly important to me. And I want to talk about this for a minute because a lot of people will say one thing and do the opposite. And behavior is the highest form of communication. So we really have to look at, is the communication that is coming from the mouth in alignment with what they are doing? And if those two things aren't aligned, that's not integrity, because our word and our actions need to line up for us to be in integrity. And to me, that is like one of the most important pieces of a healthy relationship, is that our words and our actions align. Not just saying, I value quality time, and then, not actually being someone who cares about spending time with you. And so those are my top values in a relationship. Playfulness and adventure is actually a top one too. I really need playfulness and adventure in my relationships. And that's like spontaneity and joyful fun, and doing things and just having that excitement of going on roller coasters and going on adventures with no plan, and things like that. Like, that's a big value for me, and it's something I find incredibly attractive. Also, another big value for me is spirituality. I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual, and I would need someone who honored and respected my spirituality. If they have a similar belief structure or whether they're really passionate about it, it's amazing for me to share that with them. But I also don't need them to share my exact beliefs and worldviews, as long as they respect mine and I can respect them individually. So those are all things that we want to be thinking about when we look at our values. Are material possessions one of your high values? And that's more of a thing, but I really want you to anchor in on the feelings. So if you feel abundant. So think about what your top values are as far as how you feel and how you want to feel in your relationship. And so now think about, like, if you're in a relationship right now, I want you to think about the way the relationship has been going. Think about if you're in a marriage or you're dating someone, or even if you're in the early phases of dating and you're just feeling that disconnect, like things aren't working out, you're not sure if this is the right person for you. I want you to take a look at your high values, so the top 5 to 7 values. And now I want you to think about how you feel in the relationship as it is right now, with nobody making any changes. Are you feeling the way that you would like to be feeling in your future relationship? Do you feel unconditional love? Do you feel passion? Do you feel supported and seen? Do you feel the way you want to be feeling in your ideal relationship? And if the answer is no, don't worry, you don't have to make any changes yet. And I think that's the fear most people have, is that once they are honest with themselves and they say, okay, so currently my top values are these 5 things. My relationship is operating on these values, which might feel like neglect, separation, disconnect, poor communication, unloved, unheard. Like, those are all like relationship values that are not aligned with what you would like, right? So think about how it feels now and what you would like to have. And just with curiosity and awareness, look at the discrepancies, because it's not going to help you if you're not being honest with yourself about what your current reality is like. It doesn't serve you and it doesn't serve your partner, because if you're operating from one set of values and you keep trying to convince yourself that this is the relationship for you, but the values aren't aligning, and I'm talking about behavior. I'm not talking about what they say is important to them. I'm talking about their behavior. You don't have to make any changes, but you need to at least start being honest with yourself so that you stop suffering so much in the relationship the way that it is. And I'll just say, once you have those two defined points of how it's like now and how you would like it to be, then we start working with understanding who you are. That's step two. So, step one is define what you want. Step two is understand who you are. And we do this by taking a look at your Enneagram type and your attachment styles to help you understand your current operating system. Now, why am I not saying, like, let's go try to fix the other person? Because you can't change someone else. The only person that you can transform is yourself. But first, we need to know where you're going, which is why you want to define what you want. And then we take a look at how you are being in the relationship. Not because it's your fault, because it's not your fault. It's nobody's fault. It's because this is the perfect opportunity for you to look at, okay, well, where maybe am I not holding up boundaries? Where am I not expressing my needs? Where am I not being clear about what my values are? Where have I not been paying attention to behavior on both sides that are not in alignment with this vision that I have of a relationship that would truly make me happy? And so think about how you want your relationship to be, and then take a look at how it is now. And think about not only the behaviors. First, let's take a look at the behaviors that are in the now. So, are we communicating in a way that's respectful to our partner? Are we communicating in a way that we know what our partner's needs are, that they know what our own needs are, and that we're showing each other respect in those needs? And let's talk, we just want to talk about behavior. So understanding that is going to help you understand the operating system of yourself and of your relationship. And I will say, probably one of the biggest challenges for couples is they're not aligning their behavior with what they say they want. And that is one of the biggest challenges for couples, because it's really hard sometimes to see our own behavior, especially when you're in a conflict. Because if you're in a conflict, you go into survival mode, and now you're going to act from your wound instead of your intention. And so when you're thinking about this and where you're at now, like, do it from a place of curiosity and study. Nothing has to change. You don't have to change who you are. You just want to have a vision for where you're going. And then you need to just make some adjustments to the behaviors so that they're in alignment with what you both want. Now, if you're in a relationship and you don't have a vision for your relationship outside of yourselves, it's very difficult to create a relationship if you as a couple have not sat down and really said, this is the vision for our relationship. And I'm not talking about like house on the beach, one in the Maldives. I'm talking about the combined values, like understanding the emotional structure of the relationship, like connection, unconditional love, respect, those types of values. Really defining what that looks like as a couple, and then as individuals, what that means to each one of you. And then seeing where there's a gap, and then how to bring that gap closer together. Because a lot of the time what we do is we think other people see the world the same way we see the world. And when we think that, then we lose the opportunity to see the world through our partner's eyes. And this doesn't necessarily only translate to relationships. This is also like the relationships that we have at work, the relationships that we have with the customers that we have, the relationships we have with our children, our pets even. This is all relationships. So how we do one thing is how we do many things. And so by understanding the mechanics of how you operate in relationships is going to improve every area of your life, even how you show up with your career, how you show up with money, how you show up with your goals, your dreams, and your purpose. So think bigger than just solving this one relationship pattern. This relationship pattern is affecting many areas of your life. You just haven't been able to connect the dots yet. So when we take time to truly understand our own manual for operating in the world, how we see the world, how we do things, then that's going to give you this beautiful gift into understanding your true gifts and also your genius and what you have to bring to the table as a partner. And when you can gift your partner the same thing in return, they feel very safe in opening up and being more vulnerable with you, because people deep down inside truly want to be seen and they want to have someone that they can be vulnerable with. But if you're someone who's trying to make them be someone that they don't feel like they can be, then it's really hard to be vulnerable in that environment. And really strong relationships are really built in the framework of boundaries and vulnerability. So let's take a look at, there are many ways you can get to know your personality better. One of them is through the Enneagram, which is this ancient personality test, which helps you understand, it's like this written manual for understanding your operating system and how you see and interact in the world. This was one of the greatest gifts I think that I ever received from the universe, in that, like, I was reading a book on Buddhism and relationships, and it said, my partner and I were struggling at the time, the best thing you can do to have a healthy relationship is to understand your Enneagram type and the Enneagram type of your partner, so that you could understand their experience of the world. Most of the time, we think our experience of the world is how other people experience the world. But the truth is, there are many different ways people experience the world. And the Enneagram is like this cheat sheet that once you understand how your partner sees the world, then it gives you this glance and this like insight into their operating system. It's like being able to look under the trunk of the car and or the hood of the car, and to be able to understand how all the moving parts work for that car, because they're all different, right? They're all different. And so using the Enneagram is a really powerful tool, and I will put some links into Enneagram tests that I like, and they're really valuable and very accurate. You don't need to go buy the whole typing system. Having the number is really just important in and of itself. And then understanding the way that your operating system works. The next thing is your attachment style. We have 4 primary attachment styles that most people operate in relationships with. The first one is an anxious attachment style. And I would say this is probably one of the more common attachment styles with people who have challenges in their relationships, because they have a ton of anxiety around fear of rejection. And this is a pattern that unfortunately is a consequence of a lot of broken marriages, addiction in the home when you were growing up, or emotional, neglect and abuse, will create this anxious attachment style. And there's so many ways that it shows up. I'll do, like, tomorrow, on tomorrow's call, we'll go all into attachment styles. Right now, I just want you to be aware that you do have an attachment style, and that and to know what it is very valuable. So the next thing that we want to look at is the avoidant attachment style. And that's the one that's going to be a little bit more like push away when things get close. They might be the one who's like all in the beginning until we get it all in, and then they're going to pull away. And then the anxious avoidant attachment style is one of the hardest ones, because you're both anxious and avoidant, depending on the situation and depending on which part of you is being triggered in the moment. And then the last one, which is the one we want to move towards, is this secure attachment style. And if you're in the first 3 categories, you don't understand what a secure attachment style is. So even if you met someone in it, you might reject them because it doesn't fit into the puzzle piece that is your current attachment style. So it's really important, and you could take an online test. I'm working on publishing one, and I'll put the link in when I have it ready. But you can go online and take a quick attachment style test, and it will tell you if you know what your dominant attachment style is. The reason this is important is because it outlines the behaviors that are probably creating more conflict in your relationship, or it also explains to you why you're experiencing heartbreak the way that you are. So if you're an avoidant and you feel heartbreak coming or you fear rejection, your immediate reaction is going to be to run and to push that person away. And if you're anxious, you're going to be looking at your phone every 2 seconds. You're going to be trying to get their attention any way possible. You're going to be ruminating about this person all of the time, going from like planning your marriage to like, seeing them in your mind with being with someone else and just the ultimate betrayal. It is like a roller coaster of anxiety being in an anxious attachment style. And then the secure attachment style is just that the thing that we want to move towards. And so part of what we'll do in tomorrow's session is I'll really walk through what a secure relationship looks like, how it feels, and talk about those behaviors, because if you have the other three, it's foreign. It doesn't make sense to you. And it's also going to be really new. And I love it because this is where skills come in, right? So there's part of it is like defining what you want, but then there's also certain skills that need to be developed in order for you to have the kind of relationship that you want. So after we know who you are and you know who you are, then we use intuition to help you define the aligned action to go from point A to point B. So right now, if you're struggling with heartbreak, you're either in a relationship that's not working, or maybe you were just dumped and you don't understand why you're having so much pain, or perhaps you keep dating the wrong person, the type of person that's just not in alignment with what you want, or you keep getting rejected, or maybe you're attracting the wrong guy, or maybe you're super attracted to the bad guy, but like the nice guy comes along and he doesn't feel you're not attracted to him, so you avoid them and you go for the guy on, with the leather jacket and the motorcycle. I'm not speaking from personal experience or anything. But so step 3 is once we have those 2 points defined, then we're going to take action. We're going to figure out, we're going to use intuition, and I'm going to teach you how to use intuition, and we'll do that on day 3. And you're going to understand that the next step is to take action of some kind. Now, intuition may not always make sense. I was working with one lady and she wanted to have a love match. And so when we were working together, and we defined her values, and we did this whole process, and intuition came back saying that she needed to quit smoking. And so I did the reading in my own field, and then I had her do the same reading because I really like teaching people how to use intuition for themselves so that they have the empowerment to be able to get that information on the fly. And it's a muscle that just needs to be developed over time. But the answer for her was to quit smoking. And so when I said it, I was like, this is what I got. And she said, it is, I am a smoker. And what I really want in a relationship is health and vitality with my partner. And I know that if I'm smoking, I won't attract somebody who values health. And so the first step for her was, not to go join Tinder. It was to quit smoking. And that was the next obvious action step in her journey to finding the partner that she wanted to be with. So that's the step 4, is where we're using intuition to get the next aligned action. And then as soon as you start taking action towards the step, like as soon as you're in momentum and you're taking action, tons of resistance is going to come up. Your old programming, your old beliefs, your family systems, all of that stuff is going to come up as soon as you start taking aligned action. And that's where the magic happens, because that's where recode comes in handy. And this is where people get to avoid, 10 years in therapy, because the recode goes in and takes a look at what's not aligned between what you want and what it is now. And then the action pulls up all of the resistance. And we use recode to eliminate the resistance. So we can go into those memory patterns and start removing them from your mind, basically. So let's say you have a deep fear of rejection that was created by, Tommy picking Annie over you in the second grade, not from personal experience or anything, but yes, it is. So that fear of rejection, even though it's like, oh, but that was second grade, it doesn't matter. It's how it registered for you as a child. And if that fear of rejection came from that experience because that experience was intense enough, now it's a belief that kind of got ingrained into your neural pathways. And we can use a superconscious recode to create new neural pathways that are in alignment with a secure, healthy relationship. And it's fast. I was just talking to a client of mine last night at a women's circle, and we were really looking at her journey. And it was funny when we sat and she was sharing her story with the other women in my group about how fast it was. It was so fast. And, we worked together for a solid year, but when she came in, she couldn't even date. She was questioning why she was even here, couldn't stop crying, had a really severe anxious avoidant attachment style. And now she's in a happy relationship that she feels good in. And we're still working with some old attachment wounds, but like they're nothing like they were before. And she has the tools necessary to navigate the emotions of dating. And, it's going well. And it was amazing how fast it shifted for her. And I think in the moment, we don't think things are happening fast enough unless we're working with a coach who will sit down with you and go, actually, it's so fast. Look at where you were 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago compared to where you are now. Because we need that external person to help us see the journey, but also to help keep us anchoring in on where we're going. Because when we finally say what we want, when we really say, this is what I want, and we start aligning with it, things shift. And when the shift happens, it's scary because the people who aren't aligned with that might start falling out of our life, or we'll start seeing them in a way that helps us see who they're really being. So I'll give you another example. I had a client come to me whose marriage was falling apart and she could not figure out what to do. She was definitely going to leave her husband. And she was so heartbroken that she was crying all of the time. And she was just mired in how are we going to, separate our assets and how are we going to do the kids? And it was just in the problem. And there was so much pain there. And we really got clear on what was wrong in her marriage. But then when I started asking her how she wanted it to be, she had this, very clear vision. I want to feel supported. I want to be with someone who has strength. And she couldn't see her husband in that way. And so I said, great, let's not make any decisions for the first 4 weeks. We're just gonna define what you want, not make any changes to anything in your marriage yet. And so as we started defining what she wanted, and then also going through the recode process and then taking action, and then, learning emotional resiliency tools and all of the other things that I teach in Mindful Love, how to set boundaries, how to know your values, how to understand your Enneagram type and everyone else's Enneagram type. Um, when we were doing the intuitive reading part, I could tell that there was something outside of their marriage that was creating conflict. And, I think it was session 3 where we started talking about work and how they had taken on these new partners in their company. And as she started talking about the new partners, I immediately could smell narcissistic abuse and gaslighting. And I didn't pick it up from her or her husband, but I could just feel it in their field and in their marriage. And sometimes this might look like an in-law who's, creating chaos for you. or it could be a friend or a coworker or a sibling. It doesn't always have to exist in the marriage. Sometimes it's someone outside of the marriage. And that was what happened for her. Was these partners came in and they wanted to get a good deal on the business. They wanted them out. And so they started creating chaos and conflict between them so that they could basically get the business at a bottom basement amount, because who wouldn't sell at a really cheap price if they were in the throes of divorce just to get out of it, right? So their plan was pretty horrible, and almost destroyed a marriage. And we were able to, once she was able to see it, and we worked through that narcissistic abuse, and I helped her through the gaslighting and recovering from the gaslighting and the manipulation and helping her understand, how that impacts our decisions and our emotions. Her marriage today is amazing, and it's so funny because when we did our last session, he was exactly who she had called in, but she couldn't see it because her mind was being really manipulated by these outside people, and then also past traumas that hadn't been fully processed or worked through. And so in her own inner work, going from I'm leaving this person totally heartbroken to now we have a really strong, healthy marriage. I feel fully supported. I feel loved unconditionally. I can chase my dreams. And he's exactly what we defined. But when we defined him, he was not the person we put there. We put a beam of light. And so with Recode and with intuition and with setting up and defining those values, um, the heartbreak that she was experiencing at the thought of even having to pull her family apart is no longer there. It's no longer an issue. And it's amazing because that's us surrendering the outcome to the universe, right? It's surrendering it, saying, this is what we really want. This is what our heart desires. And be open to the possibility that we don't yet know how that's going to show up in our lives. But what we do know is that we need to stay anchored in the end result of what we want to create. We cannot see the solution through the problem. The problem only creates more anxiety and stress. It's like trying to see your way out of a dark tunnel using a dark flashlight, right? Like it's not going to work. You need a light to help guide you where you're going. And what I just want to say is that um it's not like Recode is like this like magic thing and you don't have to do any work. Like there's a lot of self-awareness that needs to go into it. And that's the beautiful process of working with a group. And it's also the beautiful process of working with a coach, because unlike therapy, we're not going and unpacking years of trauma, memories, and things like that. We don't need to do that. What we're doing is we're setting a goal point of how you would like it to be, getting you into the structure of what actions need to happen for you to get there, one at a time, using your intuition, doing some education around, what skills might need to be developed, what behaviors, how does the environment need to change? And that's unique. That's for everybody's is unique. Like if you read a book that tells you one way of doing it, it's not going to help you because it might not be the thing that you need to do, because your situation is completely unique. Your relationship is unique. Your histories are unique. And also what you want is unique to you. And that's where your intuition is going to guide you for the best outcome for you. So if you're really struggling with a broken heart, like you can't get over your ex, or if you're really struggling and you're heartbroken in your current relationship, or if you're struggling and you are really stuck on not being able to meet a person that you can build a healthy, secure, loving relationship with, I'm going to offer that Heartbreak 911 is my intro course to relationships, and it's actually set up to redirect you away from relationship topics in order to get your mind away from the problem. So it's very intentional on how it's set up, to start getting you to think about the bigger picture. Because sometimes when a pain is too big, like when you're in the pain, and I remember this with my marriage, the pain was so big, the pain was so huge. I had to start thinking about other things to get out of the pain of the situation I was in. And that was one of the greatest gifts I gave myself. And I remember working with an EMDR specialist once, and he said to me, he goes, sometimes what we have to do is put it in a different container, and we can process the same pain in a different container. So like, I think I started focusing on business or health or my family and my home, things like that, because those were less painful things to focus on, but they also hit the same wounding in the same parts that were being impacted by the heartbreak. So we take a little bit of the pain and we put it in a different container to focus on. And we're able to work through the pain using recode and choice points. Um, and then when you come back to the heartbreak, it's a little bit less because we've taken some of it out and changed the color of it. And so by the time, you're really starting to work on some of the deeper relationship challenges in your life, it's not the big hurt that it was before. And so that's what Heartbreak 911 is. It's the fastest way to just reset and reframe and refocus away from the heartbreak, so that you can get back to living and to have purpose and meaning in your life again, to feel like you know who you are. And that is what I love about that program is it's fast, it's intense, and it will get you the fastest results in your relationships. The more lengthy program that I have is Mindful Love, and I'll talk more about that on day 3, but that's where we spend more time together. And we're really looking at the ins and outs of relationships and what it looks like to build a secure, healthy, loving relationship. And I love that program. You get to spend a lot more time with me, and I get to spend more time with you and a small group understanding the intricacies of your unique situation and what will best help you move forward in life. It's a bigger commitment, and we do a lot more in-depth work on that one. I would say if that's something that you're interested in, my first question would be, are you ready to go all in on yourself? And are you going to be committed to the process even when it gets uncomfortable? Because, change isn't always super comfortable. And I would say having a great community that's supportive, that makes it easier for you, is probably one of the most valuable things that you can have. And that is something that I foster and is a huge priority for me. So if you're interested, tune in tomorrow. We're going to be talking about attachment styles. I'm going to introduce you to a very powerful process, the recode. We're actually going to do a recode tomorrow around attachment style and parts, specifically around the different parts and aspects of us that have different attachment styles. So tune in tomorrow. It's going to be great. I'm very excited to hear about what your takeaways were from today, and also about what questions you might have. Like, this is probably going to bring up some questions for you. So I'd love to hear your questions, and also to get your feedback on what you learned about yourself, or what you learned about your relationships today. So thank you so much for taking the time. I really value your time, and I really value your attention. I know that there are so many different places where our attention is being pulled, and I can't tell you how much I value your attention and your energy today. And I hope that you feel very valued and respected with the way that we utilized our time together. Please reach out, Tabitha at somatribe.org. I will put the link in. And if you haven't already, sign up for my Mind Body newsletter, which I send out every week. I really talk about the mind-body connection, and I use science and intuition to help you understand your relationships with pain, your body, your relationships with other people, and really creating more expansive knowledge around consciousness and how to create what you love in the world. So please sign up for my newsletter. And then also, if you haven't already, start listening to my podcast, Mindful Love Podcast. You can find it everywhere podcasts are played. I really go into relationships. I have amazing interviews on there about people who've overcome challenging things and created something amazing on the other side. And that's really that like passion for taking people from pain to possibility. Thank you so much again for your time. My name is Tabitha MacDonald. I'm an intuitive coach and body worker, and I'm here to help you get the love that you want. Have a wonderful day, and I look forward to engaging with you tomorrow.